Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Very well. Are you ready to talk about interesting things?
Yeah, the week in the news.
The week in the news.
News of the week.
Is that like the Honourable... His Honour the Lord Mayor of London.
Uh-huh.
No, His Honour the Lord Mayor of the City of London. It's like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You remember that guy? One of those old American politicians had two jobs and wrote himself letters.
Oh, wow.
And argued with himself in letters, and as one person he would make a specific request of the other title, and the other one would have to deny it.
Right.
Because it was his job in both cases to request and deny.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yep. Are you ready to,
Yeah, would you like to go first? Or
why
would you like
don't
to
you go first?
Okay. So the two things that I've brought to begin with are both separate web funding events. One of them is Alan Moore's new Kickstarter dropped this week.
Okay.
And
do you have a clip?
I do have a clip. I don't know how much of it you're going to want to watch, but it's. I think maybe you should just watch it. So I'll pull it up here. You can see this is his Kickstarter page. It's for Cinema Purgatorio, his new it's an anthology comic, and he's made a video. Can you see all right?
Mm-hmm.
Himself. 4.5 minutes.
Cinema house on a rainy day. You know, I remember when I was a kid, you'd have dozens of these places. They were all over the place. You know, places called the Ritz, the Rialto, the Isolde, all of them. You couldn't move without tripping over a cinema. And of course, back in the day, they were very different to what they are today. They weren't all sanctified and sterilised and cleaned up. No. You go in, there'd be a little old lady, wouldn't there, in the booth, and she'd have the old rimmed glasses on. You know, she'd have all of that bitterness and rage at her station in life, and it was all concentrated into that one tiny booth. You could feel the resentment coming off of her, couldn't you? And there'd be the manager. He'd be some geezer, he'd be hanging around. You'd know him. He'd be fancy dressed. He'd have the dinner jacket on, wouldn't he? He'd have the bow tie, and he'd always have that little look, that little smirk, as if he knew what you were up to, or as if he was doing something behind your back. You never knew what they got up to, them sort of blokes. You never knew. And there'd be the ice cream girl, wouldn't there? She was like a little erotic oasis in the middle of all that cinematic darkness. She'd be there with her frozen goods on her tray, wouldn't it? And you'd have the usherette. You'd have the usherette with her torch. And what was that about? They always had a bad leg, didn't they? Them usherettes back then in the 50s, they always had a bad leg. You know, and of course it'd be the atmosphere of the places, all sorts of stuff used to go on, didn't it? In the dark and the smoke. You know, you'd have a couple behind you, wouldn't you? They'd be having a good old time there. You'd perhaps have a bit of stabbing, you'd perhaps have a bit of seat slashing, but it was all part of the atmosphere. It was all part of the fun. You know, yeah, I'll get nostalgic about them places. And I tell you, I was talking to my mate Kevin, the other day. You know, Kevin is one of the O'Neill boys. And he was reminiscing as well about the cinemas, what he used to go into when he were a lad. And we were saying, you know, it's not really fair, is it? It's not fair that our generation should have had that bounty of blessings, that we should have experienced that nirvana of the early cinemas and their unpleasant atmosphere. It's not really fair that all you youngsters today, you can't know what that's like. So me and Kevin, out of the goodness of our hearts, what we decided was we'd recreate some of that quality that places used to have back then. We'll perhaps create a cinema like what they used to have back then. What had the funny names? We'd perhaps call it Cinema Purgatorio. And like, you know, Kevin doing the
So I found contemporary Alan Moore to be a bit of a mixed bag, including his work with Kevin O'Neill on The League, but I really love this. Like, this is a movie as far as I'm concerned.
Sure,
I think it's a great movie.
Yeah.
I love the nostalgia for shittiness.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what nostalgia is. It always amuses me when people talk about regional foods and how regional foods are always
Right.
poor people foods. No one really wants to eat
Oh, man.
collards and chitlins. It's
Back
just,
in the
that's
good
what
old
was left.
days when we could only get blueberries for 2 weeks a year, blueberries were better.
Right, yeah, exactly.
50 weeks a year we had to be fetishizing their absence.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's his goal and stuff?
Oh, the Kickstarter goal is $9,000. He's raised $96,000.
What do you want $9,000 for?
I
Like-
think that he's pitching this with Avatar Press just as opening salvo on a larger line that they were pretty sure they were going to release, and the bonuses are autographed hardback copies of the first edition of a pulp magazine. Like, what is that? Like,
seems
it's
a lot
a
like-
pulpy, shitty fetishization, and then what
Right.
they're doing is selling really classy versions of it.
Yeah, it seems like this was an excuse to make a Kickstarter video.
Yeah, I think
That,
so.
like, this is an
How
excuse
could
for...
you? But
Alan
he got
Moore.
to put on a green suit, and he looks 15 years younger
Yeah,
than
he
he
got-
did
yeah.
he did 5 years ago.
Yeah, so it was an excuse to sit in the movie theater and dye his beard, and that's lovely.
Right.
That's good stuff.
So actually, I think I'm presenting this Kickstarter as a unit of culture.
Oh, as a unit of culture?
Completely
Yeah, that's
divorced
really
from
interesting.
whether it pays off in terms of the magazine. Though
Yeah.
I certainly will try the first issue and see if it's any good.
Any good, yeah. So Alan Moore is an interesting person. I think he's an individual who is uniquely suited to his station in life. He seems to have really
Had
found
the good fortune to find him his job.
right to find the niche for him, surly old man of graphic novels.
Yeah.
I am really interested in kind of what you were saying about a nostalgia for shittiness. There's the New York Times released a photo anthology of the walled city in Hong Kong
Oh.
this week.
Wow.
It borders on that sort of thing as well, where you have this like a very unique environment. Just to give some background, so the British controlled Hong Kong for 100 years, and had a series of conflicts with China about what exactly was and wasn't included in Hong Kong proper. And there had been a wall fort near Hong Kong that was not part of the city in the late 1800s. So initially the British said that that wasn't part of the territory that they controlled. And so the Chinese continued to control it. But then over time, the Chinese didn't want it and the British didn't want it. So it kind of became the closest thing to an anarchical, self-governing city that we really have in the 20th century. It's famous for having the highest population density of any district of all time, something like 1.33 million people per square kilometer.
Have you read any Neil Stevenson?
A little bit, not a lot.
I think that this comes up specifically in Diamond Age, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, that some of it happens
I think that's
in
right.
these borders, but in the future. But
Yeah.
that the historical past of its independence is relevant to the plot.
Yeah,
Unless I'm mixing books or
maybe,
plots.
or both.
But, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. I look forward to seeing whether or not that is good.
Yeah. I just love how the whole first half it's in the second person, as if this is a shared experience,
Right.
And then the whole second half is talking about how it's obvious that I never got to have this experience of shitty backwoods British cinemas in
Oh,
the 50s.
yeah.
And so he like turns around to him and his buddy Kevin, bringing to me the thing that he's told me that I've had my entire life. Of
Yeah.
nostalgic for shitty.
That's pretty lovely. Uh-oh.
Yeah, he's a lovely fellow.
Just thought of this. This may be a problem.
Oh well,
Yeah, I may have to do that
it's a soluble problem.
more than once. So, yeah. So, yeah, that's neat.
Yes.
I think there should be more things in second person, personally.
Oh, have you read Bright Lights, Big City?
No, but, yeah, I'm aware of
Have
its
you
existence.
talked about it with Mel? Maybe she's read it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So, can we, moving on?
Yes, that's all the Alan
Okay.
Moore-based content I have.
Awesome.
I have for the...
So I went to see Deadpool.
Oh! Is it hilarious?
It's pretty good. It's pretty funny. There's definitely a focus on one-liners. I was hoping for a little bit more focus on...
Does he talk to himself a lot?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I like about Deadpool, is when he's being mean to himself in really hilarious, snarky ways.
Yeah, there's a good bit of that.
Okay, then. All right.
Yeah.
That's all I asked.
I was hoping for more physical comedy. I was kind of imagining kind of a Jackie Chan movie in the Marvel universe. But
you would think so. They didn't play up the he's invincible regen so that they
a little bit, but not in a slapsticky way. Still keeping with a kind of a fixation on one-liners and stuff like that.
All right. One-liners are in keeping with the canon. That part is
absolutely
part of the game.
So I think it's interesting. I liked it way more than I've liked any of the other superhero movies that I've seen.
Yeah. I've been avoiding most of them
lately.
Did you see Guardians of the Galaxy?
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
I found its nostalgia interesting for the exact opposite reasons from Alan Moore and the exact opposite ways.
Yeah.
It's 70s soundtrack nostalgia. It was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, I do love that. I did like that about it. So I'm going to segue straight into Jackie Chan movies.
Okay.
And how I like them, and why I like them, and why everyone who's making superhero movies
should be making Jackie Chan movies.
Should go back and watch the totality of Jackie Chan's pre-Hollywood.
My recollection
career.
is that it's fairly self-similar.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then why do they have to watch the totality of it rather than just two good choices?
Well, because I'm assuming that they won't learn their lesson after the first one. They need to kind of they're building muscle memory.
I see.
Right? It's not an intellectual exercise. It's just assume this is how you make movies and action movies and stuff. So the first point about Jackie Chan movies that I think could have been included in Deadpool that were not is the assertion of being a perpetual underdog. So obviously that's an absurdity in itself, right? If you are always the underdog, you would not consistently be getting into these combative situations. You would just lose at some point and it would be over. And if you're really, this super cop or this ninja warrior or whatever, but always find yourself in these clumsy situations, like,
But Deadpool's regeneration would give you a device
Yeah.
by which to be an actual perpetual failure.
Yeah. So what I really wanted was, like, Deadpool surrounded by people with guns having to fight them off with a ladder. Or Deadpool trying to fight in the street without pants. Or, like, that was the shtick that I was secretly hoping for.
That sounds good.
And then on a specific note about superhero movies, right? So if you think back to the earliest superhero movies of like the classic Adam West Batman and stuff, Bam Whap Pow, we don't need to reinvent that, but there's a very specific cut that happens in Hong Kong action movies in which acts of violence are doubled. They're presented twice.
Okay.
So if I'm doing a shot of me, the protagonist, punching you, the antagonist, there's a shot over my shoulder where I punch. And in Jackie Chan movies, they wait until after I punched you to cut to the reaction shot. And then
it includes the fist.
They cut to before I've punched you.
Right.
So really, you're what you're actually saying is the person get punched twice, but your brain just meshes them together. And particularly with these action movies, there's with the superhero brand of the Marvel and DC action movies, there's a push to do the opposite. It seems like editors think that if they cut just after the action and we just see the person flying through the air, that will like sell it better. Or
that all relates to all the things Scott McCloud says about the gutter. That if you leave the really interesting bits to the imagination, they fill in better. I'm not sure it translates to movies very well.
So, just to give some background there, Scott McCloud is another graphic novel author who wrote Making Comics
and Understanding
Comics.
Is where he talks about the gutter.
I think it's an Understanding that he talks about the gutter.
I think so.
Okay, so he's basically saying that like you shouldn't draw pictures of everything that happens in a graphic novel. You should let the audience fill in the blanks, and because that engagement makes for a more powerful experience.
I think he uses horror as the example case with like axes into heads.
Right.
That you leave the axe actually clefting a skull to the imagination. You show the axe in the air, and then you show the body in the ground.
I don't know. I think that it's obviously it's a balance. There's reasons to go both ways. I guess maybe you're making a good point.
I'm not sure I was making any point.
Editors and directors of superhero movies may be hoping to play into a fantasy of invincibility. Maybe the goal is to make the audience feel like they are Superman, or that they are invincible, or to think about how great it would be to have these superpowers. Maybe that's what they're going for.
I feel like X-Men is a whole ball of around that.
Right.
You're special, not like the other people.
Right.
Use your special.
You have your own special kind
right.
of special. Not only are you special, you have your own special kind of special.
That's right.
Yeah. But I guess what I would make a case for in action sequences particularly, and I'm thinking about Deadpool because probably 30% of it is action sequences of some sort or another, is that the physicality is really the thing that sells an action sequence, and that rhythm and that very palpable sense that this person is doing a thing, right? This person is super strong, therefore these things happen around them. And that's how this feels. That's how it affects the universe. These are the sensations that go with that. I would make a case for more of that.
Your double edit is interesting to me. I've heard other people talk about having your cake and eating it too is a bad thing. And I'm on Trey and Matt's side, where Cartman tells Kyle, "You've had your cake, Kyle. Now eat it too."
Yeah.
When you can have your cake and eat it too, you absolutely should. That's the optimum outcome. That's not a point of shame. So if that's part of the showing the punch and then showing the taking the punch, I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's only bad to try to have your cake and eat it too, and then fail to have either.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if you're ruining the whole thing by trying to have both. But if you can have both, have both.
I have a very profound fondness for and sympathy for hubris. Failed overreach is just.
It's a laudable trait. I think that goes. I think that there's a lot of that in American society. I think that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
I think that
I know.
you and I certainly both have that sort of, well, you gave it the old college try, so you lost your foot in that bear trap.
Yeah.
You're wiser for the experience.
Or Top Gear, where ambitious but rubbish, and the boat is just sinking, and you're just standing in a boat in a river, and it's just slowly sinking.
Right, ambitious but rubbish. Yeah, absolutely. Don't be paralyzed by fear, or it's better to fall making a move. Or whatever. Yeah. Moving along.
Yeah, I have a separate funding development of this week. Have you seen the evidence videos? Evidence with 3s instead of E's?
No.
In that internet way? Okay. Well, it's...
Do I have to be leaked to see them?
No. The naming is the least compelling thing about it. They are YouTube videos, and I think that at the moment there's maybe 20 of them or 25 of them, and they're just the story of a guy's deconversion from Christianity to atheistic agnosticism, and he hasn't made any new videos in a couple years, and his Patreon just dropped, and so...
Hold on, pause. So just to make sure I understand the situation, this person made a bunch of videos in the
for
past.
free, and they're all on YouTube.
Right.
And he hasn't made any more recently because making videos is they're edited. They have animations and movies and things, and so it takes time and effort. And he's been distracted by his life recently.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I know.
So he started a new Patreon.
Right.
Okay.
And
what's this guy's name?
Well, I don't know or care, but his internet handle is Evidence. EVID 3NC3 evidence, and it's wholly unrelated. This is a full segue to. I found his videos compelling and useful as I was, recovering from an upbringing, and I look forward to see what he presents in the future.
Oh, awesome!
I could show you the Patreon video, but it's just him talking about needing money.
Is there like a best video that we could watch?
I should definitely drop a link
segment
of the original YouTube videos on his channel. It's not that it's particularly novel or anything. It's just a reasonably accessible distillation of a lot of, well, yes, this one's 15 minutes long, so let's not. Of a lot of...
let's watch the first 30 seconds or
okay.
2 minutes or whatever, and then we'll cut it out.
The God we know, the God of the Western world, the God of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, has a history. Modern evidence indicates that if you read the Bible as it is currently presented by modern religion, especially if you are reading an English translation, you aren't reading the real story. What you are reading is an edited version of that history, with additions and modifications that present that story in a different way than the evidence indicates it actually happened. According to the Bible, this God has always existed, and this God predated not only human beings, but the universe itself. According to the evidence, this God began evolving from human ideas originating from 14,000 years ago, and didn't become the one God of monotheism until 2,600 years ago, in 600 BCE. If you want to know the story that the evidence presents, the story understood and supported by the majority of religious studies professors, archaeologists, and anthropologists, the place to begin is not the Bible. It is the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation story, which was discovered by archaeologists in the library of Ashurbanipal and dated to have originally been written in about 1750 BCE. As this creation story demonstrates, almost all religions in Mesopotamia at that time were polytheistic. There is no trace of the existence of monotheistic Judaism at this time. In the Enuma Elish, Marduk, champion of the Babylonian gods, defeats chaos in the form of the dragon Tiamat, and then together, the Babylonian gods form the world. In the Babylonian story, the primordial world is described as formless and void. Also in the Babylonian story, light, the firmament, dry land, the sun and moon, and mankind are created in order. These details are important because, as we will see, 1,150 years later, when the Israelites are exiled to Babylon, these details become edited into both the book of Isaiah and the story of Genesis as its first chapter.
So, what I find compelling about his work is that it accessibly synthesizes things that you could read whole books about the history of God and the development of Jehovah as a character and things. That it begins with reasons why you can't take the Bible as just unimpeachable word of absolute truth, and then once you're there, treat it as a text with a history like any other historic text, and breaks it down into the process of these things. So I enjoyed his videos a lot, and I'm pleased at the prospect that new ones are coming out.
Cool.
And when they drop, I will send you links.
Good deal.
To those things.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Those are the two crowdfunding developments I know of.
Yeah.
Alan Moore and evidence.
Well, I want to talk about evidence
this
some
week.
more, because that's fun.
Yeah.
I'm very process oriented as a person. Do you think that you are the target audience of this material? Speaking of evidence,
well,
as it exists now.
The first time I saw any of it, I was a post-Christian theist, and now I am less theistic than I was the first time I saw any of it. And so, which I might be in the target demographic? I feel like really he is cataloging his own deconversion in the hopes that it will be useful to people regardless of where they are in their own process of recovery.
Yeah.
So yes, I think I'm in the target demographic. I think I used to be it. I think I still am.
Right. Yeah. It's very difficult for me to think about atheist or humanistic or agnostic propaganda or education materials it's very difficult for me to think about what they should be and how they could work.
Yeah,
and
right.
Things like that.
I think they should be useful to the viewer, and all I will say in endorsement is that I found this useful in my process, and I wouldn't necessarily think it would be useful to somebody who wasn't already trying to sync up a disjoint that they already see between their religious life.
The goal is not to
observation of the universe
mail
around
one
them.
to every prison and church in the world in the hope that we can
it's not
save
gonna
them from the sun.
magically, yeah.
Yeah, no.
But for a person who is already trying to square disjoint, it might be useful. Yeah.
Yep.
In fact, you should watch them. They're fun.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds cool.
They're accessible. Which I think is a virtue in this space, even if I consider it a vice in
other
pompous ass art.
Right.
That's not what we're doing here.
Yeah. Cool. I feel like I want to talk more about that, but I don't know what I want to say.
Okay. Well, did you find deconversion unpleasant?
I don't know. I kind of went through it pretty early. I was, like most teenagers, I was pretty upset with the nature of the universe as it is.
Yeah, I was not upset with the nature of the universe, which is why my deconversion came much later.
Right. So initially that resulted in an extreme fondness for the churches that we grew up in.
Yeah.
And a kind of romanticism about the nature of faith and just, speaking with hindsight, most of the empowered, seemingly intelligent, laudable figures in my community were in some way practitioners of faith. They didn't have a personal faith, but they were preachers or people in the church and stuff. So it makes sense, being an ambitious young man, that you would look to those people as role models to emulate. And then the wheels just all came off in such a dramatic, emotional, immediate way. And it really, I'm not going to pretend that it was intellectually driven at 13 or 14 or whatever. Yeah. But it was just obvious that there was something fundamentally disingenuous, not about the ideology, but about the individuals. As my adult brain matured, the cast of characters just seemed less and less laudable. So I guess I did go through a period of, I don't know, if I claim that secular Christianity is a thing,
are
you going to attack me?
I mean, I hang out on our Christianity. There are people, there are atheist Christians there.
I don't think I was a Christian atheist. I don't think I was saying that Jesus was a pretty cool dude, we should do what he says even though he's not God. I don't think I was in that camp. I don't know. Some form of wishy-washy West Coast agnosticism. I think that's what I was doing.
It's not your fault. You stumbled into Oregon.
Yeah, it's not my fault. I lived in Oregon.
Yeah.
But certainly, like, in my entire adult life, I've just kind of been protected by bombast. Right? That my kind of flippant disregard for purported institutions of authority just kind of sheltered me from...
I found deconverting as an adult very unpleasant, and if I had more of this sort of content earlier on, it would have been a smoother transition for me.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. That's wonderful. We're going to sit here while I think of what I was going to talk about next.
Okay.
So, segueing into the next thing, moving right along. So I was thinking about spelling earlier.
Okay.
And the English language.
All right. You know why the word spell is the word spell?
No, why is the word spell there?
Okay. Because it's magic.
Ooh.
It's like, casting magic missile.
Right.
And the fundamental magic trick is that a man who is literate is on one hill, and a second man who is also literate is on a distant hill, and an illiterate man is with the first man on the first hill, and the first literate man hands the word pants written on a piece of
Right.
paper and hands it
Right.
to the messenger who can't read and says pants. Now go hand this piece of paper to the guy a mile away.
Right.
And he hands it to him. And the man a mile away looks at it, looks at the guy and says, pants. And it's magic. They've telepathically
It's
communicated.
they've
summoned
the
the
poured meaning
Yeah,
into
right.
those words.
The word spell is the word spell. Spelling is literally conjuring magic.
Right. Well, most certainly is.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say about spelling?
Well, I was gonna say that I went to this traumatic period where like I was writing some word. I was trying to remember whether or not it's one of those times when you like drop the Y and make an I or one of those kind of things. I'm not good at spelling, as you may recall.
Yeah.
And
The key is to be good at spell checking.
and what I thought the world really needed was some fascistic, benevolent institution to take over the English language for a while and
fix the awkward spelling.
and shore things up. And then I remembered about those giant toads in Florida. You know, when well-intentioned individuals go into the works and muck things up. You know, they imported giant frogs to eat the mosquitoes, but it turns out those frogs don't eat mosquitoes, they only eat other frogs.
Ecosystems are more complex than you think.
Right, and it occurs to me that language is a particularly difficult...
It's a very fluid ecosystem.
It is, it sure is. And then, in reaction to myself, I thought about how English is such a good second language. I don't think it's a very good first language. I think most French people have a better grasp of their language than most English-speaking people do.
But see, you're in danger of being very condescending here. That baby's first language, French, training wheels. French is language with the training wheels on. When you grow up, you can graduate into a real language.
What I mean by second language isn't the one you learn second, advance, graduate into. What I mean is an international language of trade, or
It is. My successes in life are largely due to blind chance, and one of the blind chances that most frequently pays dividends is that the tech world's lingua franca is English.
Right.
That I speak tech because tech speaks my language.
I'm really fond of the term lingua franca.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Because it should be, the lingua ingla. Obviously.
No. We are English. We eat the other,
Right.
We'll
that's
take hamburger and make it a word. Lingua franca is an English word at this point.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That that it is so voracious and adaptable.
Yep.
It's a distributed architecture. And we people whose primary language is English often kind of celebrate the adoption of new terms. A lot of phrases that we think of as commonplace now are historically from other places, or are fundamentally grammatically incorrect. Long time no see is
it's a racist mockery of language.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the white English-speaking inhabitants of San Francisco are mocking Chinese immigrants and the way that they deal with the English language, and so that's just so it's just so well suited to that.
I used to say that the important developments in human evolution were the opposable thumb and the opposable mind. But I would like to claim that English is the opposable tongue.
Yeah, sure.
That it eats itself. It eats the other.
Right.
Faces in on itself.
So the thing there is though that we could fix it a bit and get it to eat the fixes.
You sure?
Like there's nothing about a tolerance for root bastards like television or the adoption of foreign phrases, sayonara or whatever. That means we have to like spell things wrong, or that means that we have to have so much ambiguity in like our sentence structure and stuff.
This is only specific to me. I like it in old Doctor Who when the sets wobble.
Yeah.
I like it in old Doctor Who when they go on for 7 episodes and not all of those episodes advance the plot in any perceptible way. And so
it's world building.
I find English's ungainliness very friendly and compelling.
Yeah.
But I can understand how someone wanting to apply language to a specific function more effectively might feel differently. But I feel very at home with the gangliness.
Yeah. I would like to go out. I would like to proudly march out onto a limb.
Okay.
We've said earlier that that's a thing that we celebrate.
Oh yeah, hubris.
Is
take your saw with you, because I'm not going to saw the branch. You should saw it yourself.
That the English language and its tolerance for deviation and mutation is an interesting counterpart to logographies, governments that are ruled by words. That there may be Orwell is all about this idea that
double plus good.
Yeah, double plus good. That by manipulating a language, you can manipulate a people. And English is a very good language for democracy, since anybody can fuck it up as much as they want. And that's in the rules. And just because culturally, at least in America, we're so intolerant of grammar Nazis and of propriety and of...
In that language skit, Stephen Fry wonders out loud if Hitler had been trying to work in English, if it just wouldn't have worked.
Right.
If we would have just laughed at him trying to say such serious fascistic things in English.
Right.
It's simply unsuited to...
Right. I wouldn't quite go that far, but yeah, I think that's...
No, I don't think he would either. I think he just finds it useful to wonder out loud.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
I think we talked about interesting things.
We did.
Cool. Goodbye.
Later, yo.